Okay, day number 2 here on World War II. We're going to focus on the war that happened in Europe. And the war is going to begin by Nazi Germany. On September 1st, 1939, just how Hitler laid it out, he is going to attack Poland. Poland is going to collapse very quickly. And it's very interesting. Everybody kind of knew he was going to do it. There's a really kind of interesting story and how, just to show you how people were out of touch, was that the Allies went to Poland about 2 months earlier and said, hey, we want to make an alliance with you in case Hitler attacks you. And the Polish, they're so nice people. They're like, don't worry, have a Gwumpke. And they tell the Allies that we have the largest cavalry in the world, and if Hitler attacks us, we'll be just fine. Do you guys know what cavalry is? It's horses. Hitler attacked with tanks. Do I need to describe for you what happens when a horse and a tank go after each other? The tank is going to win. And it was just because the Polish were behind the times. In World War I, horses were used all over the place. So Poland is going to collapse very quickly. The Germans here are marching here on Warsaw, Poland there. And then very quickly, they're going to officially ally the three bad guys in World War II, the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo Access Treaty, where we have Hitler, Mussolini, and the Japanese are linked together. So first of all, in this war, really did not, Hitler's going to attack Europe pretty quickly, but a lot of it's going to stop here in the northern African campaigns. If you look at this map here, you'll see Germany and Italy, Axis powers. And you'll notice that Hitler is going to conquer most of Europe. All this beige are countries he conquered. Poland, Hungary, Romania, Ukraine, Greece, North Africa, France, Belgium, and even Norway and Finland. And the only neutral nations, Spain, stayed out of the war, Switzerland, and Sweden. And Great Britain was like the only Allied power in the war to not get conquered by the particular Germans. You'll notice how Soviet Union is an ally. We're going to talk a little bit later on how they had to switch sides, okay? Initially they called this the phony war because it starts in September 1st, 1939, and Hitler basically conquers everybody. He conquers France, he conquers Romania, he conquers Poland, he conquers Norway. He wins very quickly, and basically all the fighting stops. And people are like, is this really a war? What's going on? This is a picture of Dunkirk. France is going to get humiliated, and they're going to be conquered in about 2 weeks, where the combined British and French forces were basically beat up so bad they ran to the coastline in Dunkirk, France, where they were on the verge of getting annihilated by the Germans. And this is where the very famous Dunkirk evacuation took place, where basically in England, they confiscated every single boat they could find. I'm talking like a military boat. I'm talking like your dad's cabin cruiser, your dad's fishing boat. And they came across the English Channel and picked up over a couple 100,000 British and French troops and escorted them across the English Channel. If they didn't do that, they would have died. France is going to surrender very quickly. You know, they built that Maginot Line. They thought that they could beat the Germans, but the Germans once again changed everything, as I mentioned yesterday with Blitzkrieg warfare, where they used tanks and lightning war. They went right around the Maginot Line. As you can see here, you see Hitler hanging out by the Eiffel Tower. You can see this guy's face down here at the bottom, and it just kind of shows you how horrific it is. But the French are going to lose in 1940. Most of France will be conquered by the Germans. There will be a part of France that's actually conquered by a French resistance that will go on during most of the war. As you can see here, Free France, and these people were kind of like terrorist groups that would try to do whatever they could to stop the Germans. Now you're going to find very quickly the only person left to conquer in Europe is Britain. And the person holding the line is Winston Churchill. If you see this, the British bulldog, okay? America has stayed out of the war. We really don't get into it until we get bombed in Pearl Harbor. But as you know, we want to make money off of it. So this is kind of some of this U.S. Lend-Lease Acts, things that we gave money to, loaned money to, made money off of on these countries, okay? And you can see here we sent stuff to China, Australia, Africa, USSR, United Kingdom. We did not send anything to Germany this time. We weren't as neutral as we were in World War I. A very famous battle was called the Battle of Britain, also known as the Blitz, where basically it was called Operation Sea Lion, where Hitler wanted to invade England. And so his first idea was to bomb the crap out of it. So they bombed England, especially London, every night and every day. I think at the worst during the Blitz, I think they suffered bombings 60 days in a row. London was ablaze, on fire. And of course, the British people had to be tough and not give up. Winston Churchill was very big at this. You can see here some of the ruins, in particular things during the Blitz. A lot of people were actually had air raid shelters, and they actually went and hid down into the subway system of London so they could stay out of harm's way. And the Royal Air Force stepped up and did their best to go after the German Luftwaffe. That's German for Air Force. And it was a very crazy battle. And the idea was they wanted to weaken England enough for Germany to invade. Luckily, the British had this guy, Winston Churchill. V is it's not a peace sign. That's V for victory. And he is going to basically give these great speeches and encourage the English people to stick through it. Never was so much owed by so many or so few. Let's get forward together. This will be our finest hour, okay? We're going to skip that. Now, Hitler is cocky. He's attacking England. He's controlled all of Europe. And so he's going to make his basically fatal mistake. If you remember, before the war, he signed the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union so he can eliminate a two-front war, because that is the kiss of death. Well, in 1941, everything's going so well for Hitler, he thinks he can do anything. And what he decides to do is now attack Russia. He thinks Russia's going to be easy. And he thinks that really, right now, me attacking Russia is really only a one-front war, because on the Western Front, the English and the French and eventually the Americans, no one's attacking over there. So he says, I'm going to whip up Russia until they get ready to attack me. And of course, this is going to be a fatal mistake, because eventually it will lead back to that two-front war situation. Nicknamed Operation Barbarossa, he is going to dive into the Soviet Union. There's a couple reasons why. One of the reasons is the Soviet Union has a lot of oil fields. They have a lot of natural resources. It also was that idea that he wanted extra land for the master race, okay? And also there is a large Jewish population in Russia. 3 million German soldiers, 3,400 tanks are going to attack. Now, the big three are going to start meeting here. These are the big three, and they will start meeting throughout the war. We mentioned them: Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and Joe Stalin. And when America's in the war, these guys meet quite a bit to try to discuss the treaties, especially when Hitler was starting to fall apart. The Axis powers, 1942, is at their height. You can see they control Europe, they control Finland and Norway and Libya and Southeast Asia. This is obviously the Japanese, the Philippines, Japan, even the Aleutian Islands in Alaska were all controlled by the Axis powers. The Battle of Stalingrad was a very rough battle, and you see some history repeating itself. If you can remember my story I gave you on Napoleon Bonaparte trying to attack Russia and how the winter kind of destroyed his army. The same thing is going to happen in the winter of 1942 and 43. If you look here at the bottom, you'll see, and it's hard to read, but their armies are very close. Artillery, tanks, and planes. And the thing about the Russians is they don't give up, because they're going to die either way. They're either going to die by Hitler, or if they retreat and quit, they're going to get shot by Stalin, okay? So there is no surrender. There is no give up, and the winter is going to hit. And eventually, the Germans are going to lose the Battle of Stalingrad and lose probably their greatest military, their army that they have. Their German Fourth Army was considered the most experienced army, and many of them died. In North Africa, there's going to be a number of battles that are going to take place, especially between America and Germany and the British. General Ernest Rommel, this guy up here, is known as the Desert Fox. He is basically Germany's best general. And this is a picture of him down here. He is a very good general. And then, of course, we also have General Bernard Law Montgomery, or Monty. He is a British general. A lot of tank battles going on in North Africa. After they end up winning in North Africa, they're going to work into the Italy first. And it was believed that, and this was actually said by Winston Churchill, that Europe's soft underbelly, like the area that was easiest to conquer, was going to be Italy, okay? And so the Allies planned to assault the weakest Axis nation first, North Africa. And one of the guys that gets involved is this guy named George S. Patton. He's one of my favorite generals. He had a big mouth, got himself in trouble a lot, but this guy's nickname was Blood and Guts, and he did not quit, okay? So you notice that they're going to start off with the Battle of Sicily. This is General George S. Patton with the 3 stars on his helmet. And they're going to have an amphibious assault invasion on Sicily between the British and the United States. You also will find some internal dynamics. The British and the Americans always compete against each other. There's a great movie, if you ever have a chance this summer to watch. It's called Patton by George C. Scott. It's a very good movie. As you can see, lots of Academy Awards. There's the Battle of Monte Cassino. Allies liberate Rome. You can see going across the Colosseum. You'll also see a very important day that I wish I could talk about in class, and that is going to be D-Day. You know, you guys are going to be going to Eisenhower High School next year, and I don't know if you really know how special Eisenhower is when it comes to who Eisenhower was. I know he was a president, but this General Dwight Eisenhower was the guy who planned the biggest, greatest, most horrible invasion ever created, called D-Day. And the chances of it succeeding were so low that he even wrote a letter of apology and that the invasion failed, and his surrendering and quitting the top job as Allied commander. And he actually kept the letter in his pocket during the whole day of operations of D-Day, just in case. D-Day, June 6, 1944, is the first time you open the Western Front. You can see the beaches there. There's a very good movie called Saving Private Ryan. I recommend maybe you watch the first beginning part of that with your parents sometimes. I know I showed it to my kids and talked about it. It's very powerful. Here's the Normandy invasions. You see these Higgins crafts where these boats come and they drop the ramp and they have to attack the beach. As early as July 20th, people are already knowing Hitler's going down because he's in a two-front war situation now with the loss of Stalingrad. Now the Soviets are attacking from the east. And there was an assassination plot where they actually tried to blow him up. It didn't work, but they tried. August 25th, 1944, we liberate Paris. U.S. troops in Paris here, as you can see in these pictures. There were some French female collaborators. A lot of the people that helped the Nazis during their 4-year occupation were definitely picked on, put in jail, and that stuff. Hitler's last attack was called the Battle of the Bulge, where he is going to try to do one last big attack to try to stop his losses. Not going to work. In Yalta, February 1945, FDR wants the Soviet Union to help in the Pacific War. FDR and Churchill concede. Stalin needs a buffer. FDR and Stalin want spheres of influence, and Churchill wants a strong Germany because Churchill and Stalin hate each other's guts, and FDR is just trying to keep it all together. Italy is going to fall fast. Benito Mussolini is going to be basically hunted down and killed. And just to show you how much they hated him, they actually hung him and his wife in the streets of Milan. And they had him hanging up there dead for about 3 months, and birds were coming down, eating out their eyeballs and all that stuff. It was a big deal. U.S. coming in from the west, Russia coming in from the east. They meet in the middle of Germany at the Elbe River, April 25th, 1945. And, of course, as they moved in, they discovered the horrors of the Holocaust that went on that I really can't get into, but I'm sure you've heard in 7th grade English class, This is a Holocaust. This is Auschwitz, the crematoriums, some of the people that were in there, the dead bodies. This stuff happened. And Hitler's going to basically be conquered, but luckily he got conquered when he did because they had a lot of secret weapons, okay? And we are going to steal many of these scientists in the rocket program after the war. Hitler commits suicide April 30, 1945 in his bunker in Berlin. And then we have VE Day, which means Victory in Europe Day, May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders, and we are rejoicing, okay? And so these are some of the things that we're looking at there. So that's all we got there for now. This is just the European war, and I just wanted to take you through it as fast as I could. I hope you guys